going on. All right, so here we go. This is moles. There's our mole guy and our mole monster and our mole taking over the universe. Yeah, people sometimes have problems with moles. Okay, but before we do anything, just a second. I'm having a little technical difficulty on my end. There. Okay, I had the participants had slid down over my slideshow, so I'm back. Okay, so this confusing slide. The key is this blue web page, cowlitscodemg.com. When you go there, you're trying to, if you wanted to know more about this or anything else that we offer, you're trying to get to this tile of all these options. And the way you get to it is with the words learn with us. And the problem with our web page is that it morphs. Sometimes it looks one way, sometimes it looks another, but often you get to it and you see the little hamburger menu, and when you click on it, somewhere on that page says learn with us. And then when you click on that, you get to these tiles. And there's vegetable gardening. I've done some talks on that. But the mole people would probably be looking in lawn and pasture, because I think that's where they've put it. If you wanted to look at this or some other previous information on moles, or if you just wanted to browse, my favorite is the fruits. They have really awesome spray schedules on there that I have been following somewhat religiously this spring. Okay, moving on. Oh, there's my circle, and there's my, my lawn. There, I did mention lawn and pasture. I wondered, why is that not highlighted? Okay, few quick facts about moles. They're mammals, technically not rodents. They are a different order from rodents. They can dig up to 160 feet of tunnels in one line, in one night alone. And this is key, and you'll find out more about this later, but their mouths are really small. Really, really small. That's important for some of the control methods. Okay, we have 3 kinds of moles. Most people in Western Washington are looking at the Townsend mole, and it is the most common in Western Washington and Oregon, not necessarily the coast though. And it's almost 8 inches long, the largest in North America. Give that mole a prize. Okay, CJ, if you could mute, that would be great. Oh, you were muted. Never mind. Another mole that we have, and this is more common on the coast, is the Pacific or coast mole. It's a little bit smaller, and it is found out in the areas that are more close to the beach because it prefers the better drained soils, and the Townsend mole has no trouble with the wet soils we have over in most of our western areas. And there's a third mole called the California or broad-footed mole, and it tends to be in southern central Oregon. So unless you're calling in from there, you probably don't have this one, but boy, is it cute. It is photogenic because, I mean, it should be the poster child for moles, isn't it? Just so cute. Look at those diggers. Okay, but how do you tell? What about these other rodents? You have a vole, which we'll talk about a little bit. You have a mole, which is what the talk about today is, and you have pocket gophers, which I am insanely grateful I don't have. The voles, they are much smaller. They do sometimes use mole tunnels. They do eat plants. So if your plant is getting eaten, it's probably one of these. They also are prolific tunnelers, and we'll look at some damage they've done in a minute. The moles, they're the ones that make the mounds in the yard. The voles do not make mounds, but I'm particularly not happy with voles at this moment, I'll tell you. But the moles are the ones that make they rip up your lawn and make big volcano mounds as they go across. But they're nothing compared to this baby. The gophers, they're the largest ones. They have big teeth, and they have these crescent mounds that are different shaped. And these guys don't just eat your plants, they pull them completely underground and then eat them. My cousin had a row of tomatoes, came out the next morning. She lives in Sandy, Oregon, and every single one of her tomato plants had been sucked underground and disappeared. It's the first time I've ever heard of that, and I've heard stories since. Okay, voles. Isn't that such a cute little face? It's such a cute little animal. Why would you not love this cute, cute little tiny animal? It's because of this. And some of you are saying, wait, what? That's what causes that? Yes. It is all over my lawn, all over my brother's lawn who lives next door. And we had some what we call dryer felt. We live in a mill town, and the mills occasionally gift people with this thick felt that you lay on your landscape and it blocks the weeds. It also provides an excellent opportunity for voles to tunnel under it, and when you peel it back, you just have that as they tunnel, they kind of shove the soil off to the side. So you have these lumps and cracks like this, and I have them everywhere. So I'm not real happy with voles. Also, voles are the ones that eat your plants. Here's a sedum that the voles ate, the roots all gone, and the sedum fell over. Uh, they do use the mole tunnels, and they love to make you think that it's the moles issue eating your plants, but it's not. Okay, gopher mounds, if you're in an area that has gophers, if you've seen a molehill, it looks like a volcano. If you see a gopher hill, they come up in their little hole and they flick off to one side. So you get this crescent-shaped pile of debris instead of a little mound. Those are typical molehills. No, this isn't my yard, but it could have been. They do tend to do that. Okay, that's a lot of molehills, but how many moles made all those mounds? It usually is just one. Moles are solitary. They get together to breed, and the females are raising the young until they stop breastfeeding, basically nursing, and then they separate. So they can have some overlap, like one male has to overlap with a few female territories, and occasionally you have some other, I mean, just some overlap, but you're not seeing groups of moles living together. Okay, some statistics. A city block, okay, usually has only one male mole in it or two female moles. So if you can imagine how big a typical city block is, that seems pretty spread out for moles. And this is the point where somebody who lived in Klatskanai last year said, but I have thousands of molehills. Well, they're busy, but they're not together. Or the old molehills are from another mole, and then the mole moved out, and then someone else came in. So you may be having less moles than you think. Okay, you can have 1 mole per acre, or you can up to 5 moles per acre. That's the spread of the statistics. Okay, when do they breed? When do they keep going? Early winter to early summer, so right about now. A little bit, actually, we're getting to the end of it. Usually have about 3 to 5, and aren't they cute? And I'm wondering how they got a picture underground in the little den, but I'm not going to ask. And once they're weaned, then they all move out, and they get a new home.
Yeah, I'm going to get it up here too. Maybe.
Where do the young moles go?
Huh?
Where do they go? They just move up and out on the ground, and they if they're good, they move quickly before some bird gets them, and they just go a little bit further away and just go in and start making an area. Now, what if the whole area is full of moles? Well, then I don't know. Actually, you'd think they'd eventually outcompete each other. So once they're weaned, they leave. They go about 30 yards away. So I'm thinking football field, not even to the center of the football field. I don't know. The question is, do they fight for the territory if they run into another mole? I do not know. They are sexually mature and ready to make more moles in about 10 months, and they breed their first winter. So every year you'd think they'd be overrun, but I think they have some natural predators. Okay, their territories. The male territories do overlap a little bit with the females. Woohoo, for a little love time. But they don't overlap with males, and females' territories can overlap with other females. They seem to get along okay. Okay, this is a very important page. If you have your camera, or you want to make sure you know how to get back to this slideshow from the website, this is the diagram. Now, what do we have here? We have a mole hill, and what those are is as they're digging these tunnels every now and then, they go and they say, get the dirt out. They have to somehow get rid of the excess dirt. Occasionally, you see something that kind of looks like a ridge. And what that is a feeding runway. They get up right under the soil surface and they go along, and there's certain things that live there that they like to eat. So they just plow along for a while and then go down. The thing about that is neither one of these two things that you see are, if you were for some reason wanting to trap a mole, they aren't the best place to start as far as putting any traps in. And a lot of people think, oh, there's a molehill, I'll just put the trap in that molehill. Or here's this nice area, I'll just stick a trap there. So those two things you see on the surface are not good places for mole traps. Okay, moles can go 15 feet an hour. And they make a little nesting area down under the ground, and most of the time they're going back and forth in the main channel and other side channels. So what do they eat? What are they looking for? Mostly earthworms. But they can also eat grubs, slugs, snails. Sounds pretty good for us. The crane flies, centipedes, millipedes, and ants and sow bugs and termites and beetles and crickets. All these things, it's nice that they're helping to control them. Although we don't really dislike earthworms. Do not
Yeah,
like
Back to this.
slugs.
I don't have Zoom workplace, Kenny, so I can't do this.
Okay, we'll just
You-
Hey,
listen.
Heidi.
You can.
Thank you. Okay, but what about plants? Yeah, they do occasionally eat a little bit of the plants, like the grass roots as they're going through, or some vegetable crops, or some bulbs and seeds, but they're not the main cause of damage on those. So they don't usually cause major damage. The real culprit is that cute little vole. They are voracious. So here's the deal. Why do the moles keep moving to your yard? And the answer is you invited them. Why? Because healthy lawns are perfect mole habitats. They're moist, they're fertile, they have edges on them where insects like to gather and worms kind of bump up against them, and they love it. So they go and they, find their favorite places to eat. So what can you do? Always use the least toxic method first. So that's what I would recommend straight off the bat. You can learn to live with them. Just let them do their thing because you love them. You can just use a rake, flatten the molehills, throw on some grass seed, rake it in, and just let it be patched up. Okay, so there's a person doing that. You can step on the raised edges of those surface tunnels, and that's pretty much all you have to do to those. And especially if you have plants growing nearby and you don't want the roots to have air getting to them because of that tunnel, then you just can step on those and get that air pushed out and you're good. This is my favorite slide because you just adopt a more naturalized landscape and the molehills are just kind of mix into the landscape and they're under the shrubs or under taller grass, and realize basically the moles are doing you a favor. They're aerating your lawn, they're controlling some of the excess insects, they're improving the drainage, and some people just live with them. Okay, but what about option B, which is, okay, I want to do something. I want to repel them. I want to encourage them to not come to my place. Okay, this is a lovely picture of all the things that people try to put down in the holes and they do not work. Okay, they shove hair in, they get pee somehow. Just a second. I have to turn this off. There we go. Um, and the pee just goes into the ground and dissipates and they don't care. They try throwing cat litter, especially with poop, the garlic experiment, mothballs, X-lax, all kinds of things. Why doesn't this work? Well, mostly it doesn't work because they don't care about most of that. They don't they just kind of go around it. And if you think they're going to choke on it, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, another one that I see, and people say, oh, put windmills in, and the vibrations will deter them. Well, remember, you're stomping around on the lawn and you're mowing, and maybe you have your kids driving their little, toy cars or whatever. All that vibration is just normal. It doesn't scare them when you're doing it, so it's not going to scare them when they feel the ground vibrating from a stick or from fans. So sorry, that doesn't work. Okay. And by the way, I like how this is supposed to be a mole deterrent, but this is actually a rat pretending to be a mole. So I hope he got paid. Okay, what about trying to force them out? Okay, what can I do? Could I do a mole bomb? Can I do a gas cartridge? Boom, this would be fantastic. I can run gas underground. Have you guys seen Caddyshack? Yeah, doesn't go well. They have very, very extensive mole systems. And nothing you do is going to penetrate the whole system. If they get near it and they don't like it, they'll just go away to another part. And then when you're done, they'll come back. Not to mention it's, you know, a really bad idea because you could have your yard explode. Okay, another thing people have tried, broken glass, razor blades, barbed wire or bob wire, if it depends on where you're from, rosebush canes. These actually are more dangerous to you because you are going to get cut on any of these or poked. And if the mole doesn't runs into something it doesn't like, it just turns and goes around it. It just makes a new hole, a new tunnel. So no, don't do that. What about flooding them out? If I just pour enough water in there, I'm going to drown them. That'll be great, which is not going to work because they have such huge tunnel systems. They just kind of get away from it. It can't penetrate the whole system. The water just sinks down through the tunnels. And guess what? Moles can swim. So now you're thinking, there's no hope, there's no hope. Okay, what about these mole plants? Well, there's zero evidence that these do anything to moles. And more important, this is an invasive plant. It memorize that crazy look to that crisscross leaf action. And if you see those, remove them. My neighbor, he didn't try to plant them. I think they just came on their own. There's like two plants right on the border between our two houses. And every year I'm out there pulling those things. They come back. They're invasive. Okay, and now the biggie. What about mole repellents? We got this granular repellent or these things you stick in. Maybe the mole doesn't stay in that area for a short time, but they just go to a different area of their territory. And when it stops stinking or whatever it's doing, they come back. They will be back. Okay. Okay, there is a way to stop moles, but get this, okay? Think about how deep down the mole tunnels go. And you would have to dig a trench 2 to 3 feet deep, okay? And then you insert wire like this, hardware cloth, down into that trench. And then you can surround your garden with this. Like your raised bed or the whole garden. This is not a permanent wire. It does rot and rust away after several years. So you'd have to do it again in about 4 to 5 years, probably. Not sure exactly how long they last. Okay, but before you put the wire in, you could put rocks. That's a more permanent. Make sure they're tight together because the moles aren't that big. And this hardware cloth is also what stops voles, and we'll get to that in a minute again. At least 2 feet into the ground and have it stick up 6 to 12 feet above the ground because they do come out on the ground and move on the surface sometimes. And it also helps to have a chiropractor on speed dial because this is horrific amount of moving of dirt and rocks and wire and things. Okay, this actually works. You take the bottom of your raised bed and you put the hardware cloth on it. You have to make sure your raised bed is deep enough for any sort of maybe not even rototilling, but spading of the soil that you want to do. And then you set it down, then you fill it with the soil. And that actually is the way to keep voles controlled and moles too. But the voles are one of the ones that people like to stop. Again, you can't guarantee this is going to last forever with its direct contact with the soil. Okay. All right. Is there any chemicals I could spray? No. Sorry. And besides, chemicals are bad. They're expensive. They poison the groundwater. They could kill beneficial insects. They may even damage the songbirds or other wildlife. You don't want to be spraying things around. If you wouldn't want to breathe it, then don't spray it. So that's not an option. Besides, they don't work. Okay, now, what can you do if you want to have some control? Well, you can do the barriers. And you can encourage these other predators. Snakes, dogs, and coyotes are the natural enemies of moles. So if you have them around, make sure that they're out and active and well praised for their efforts. Barn owls and the raptors, if you get any kind of mole activity on the surface, they will come down and just snag that mole and off you go. There are ways to encourage, I think, especially these guys. But, if you see someone trying to cut down a dead tree, you might want to say, well, is there any possibility that that's a natural habitat for one of these? Maybe don't cut it down. It's, just kind of hope on these guys. Okay, but what about using traps? Okay, we got 3 traps here. Let's start with the one in the middle. This is advertised heavily. I broke down and bought one. It sort of caught a mole within a few minutes. Unfortunately, it only caught the claw. And the second thing was, it advertises you don't have to rip up your whole yard to put these down in the ground. And that is true. You just take that thing that looks like a torpedo with a black tip and you stab it down and kind of wiggle it around. When you catch the mole, though, the mole is not necessarily on a diet. And it's probably caught crosswise in these wires. So how do you get it up through the hole? It's this big. You have to dig your lawn open. Well, I didn't think about that. I thought, oh, well, they've advertised this. So I tried to pull it out. And I managed to mangle the wire so much. That was the one time and the last time that I was able to use that particular trap. So they do work, kind of. I would have had to kill the mole if I got it up in the ground because it wasn't dead. But it didn't work for me very well. The one on the right is the stabby spike kind. I'm going to admit I've never used that. It looks very efficient though, doesn't it? And but I can't really tell you much about how to set it. I just haven't had a lot of reason to go get one of those. The one on the left is the typical Townsend thing, whatever that is called, the Townsend mole trap, which is the one we have. Okay, good luck. The only really effective way of getting rid of moles until another mole moves in is to trap them. Now, you don't have to trap them. You can just live with them and rake it and all that other stuff I was telling you about. The bad news is, if you live in Washington State, there is an actual law still on the books. I think it's from 2000, 2001. I'm sure there's a date in it. We'll see if I put it in here. And the law states it is illegal to use a body gripping trap. And originally the law said on any fur-bearing animal. Well, these traps definitely grip. Okay. So what do? It's a law. Okay. Well, it's in 2000. It is unlawful to use or authorize the use of any steel-jawed, leg-hold trap or any other body-gripping trap to capture any animal, which is interesting because the next thing they recommend is that you use mole and rat traps, which frankly look a little body-gripping to me. And once you've caught something in a live trap, you have the issue of, well, what do you do with it? Do you name it George and keep it as a pet? I mean, what do you do with it? Okay, but you may legally trap moles with these. Okay? And it specifically says common rat or mouse traps. So there that is. Now, so at this point, you can trap them with those legal traps. You can just learn to live with them in peace. Or you can whack them. I'm serious. You can sit and wait till you see a molehill forming, and you go over to where it is, and you take your shovel and you whack it as hard as you can, and this supposedly kills them. I actually, with the rare moment that I saw this happening, I grabbed my shovel and I did that. I did not successfully kill that mole. I'm just going to tell you. I'm just maybe not good at whacking. So that is actually a legal way to do it, though. Another option you do have, totally legal, you may shoot them. If you see the activity, shooting down at the mole, it is digging, it is completely legal, except for the small problem that it's probably illegal to discharge a firearm in the area you're standing. So it would be better to work in a rural setting. And of course, firing guns, have their own issues, do not be aiming them at people, etc. Okay, like the shovel method, you would need a great deal of time and patience because you have to wait till you see the activity. Okay, but what if I want to use traps? Okay, so here's the deal. For Washington State, it is still illegal, and as master gardeners, I am required to tell you that I cannot tell you to use them in Washington. And I can also tell you that we've had extensive discussions with the Fish and Wildlife people, and they have zero interest in prosecuting any of this as long as it doesn't endanger the public. If someone's doing crazy traps in a public park, then they're going to come after you. So your choice is break the law, move to another state. It's pretty much your two choices if you're concerned about this. So technically, at this point, I am no longer speaking to people who are in Washington State because I'm going to give you some advice about using traps. And I'm doing this because my family actually can legally trap moles because we have a property in Cannon Beach. Well, my parents bought the property. I'm not rich enough to own anything in Cannon Beach, but and we have done mole control there. So we're going to also this talk. You're saying, well, is anyone from Cannon Beach listening? Well, actually, Longview, Washington is like, I don't have that good of an arm. You can throw a rock and hit Oregon. There are people who occasionally log on to these or want to look at these that are from Oregon. That's not uncommon at all. So this is for people who are lawbreakers or who live in Oregon or some other state. Okay, are you ready? We'll go on. So if you want to trap moles, first you have to find a molehill. Okay? Sometimes molehills don't look like perfect little mounds. Okay? Sometimes they look like lots and lots of mounds. Okay, what do you do? Well, first you flatten all the mounds because some of those mounds, they may not be active at all in that section. So I go around with your rake, or I just stomp on them. I use my boot or whatever, uh, and then I wait to see if there's any activity. And maybe there isn't. Maybe they moved off to the field behind my house, and I don't need to worry about them right now. But almost always, I come up with one or two that start to pop up. Okay, so that tells me this is an active area. And sometimes a new activity is a stomped area, and then look, they just pushed it up about this far. Just kind of cleared a little extra dirt out and kind of pushed a little. And so you think, oh, that actually is active. Okay, and here is our original picture. So you're not going to put it here, although if it did drop straight down into the run, that might be good. But in my experience, that I scrape off the mound and I start following the tunnel down, and I discover it goes down, and I think my moles are left-handed. They go down and take a left and go down to the main tunnel. So many times the tunnel they're ditching the dirt out of is not straight up. It's off to the side. So that's another reason why it wouldn't work. And this one, they maybe make a tunnel. And we do have a comment over here that says, I'm just curious, if they're not really detrimental to plants, why are people controlling them? Because they tend to plow through your lawn, and that looks ugly. But if you're willing to scrape it flat and sprinkle grass seed on it and water it in a little and just live with them, there's really no good reason except for that. Hope that helped you, Dana. Okay, so you want to try to find the main tunnel. Okay, so a lot of times you have a couple of hills like this, and between them or along the sides, here I even put little lines here, are good places. Not in them, generally. Okay, so I should have brought it with me. I forgot it. A friend of mine made me a piece of wood with a really long spike on it, like a little thin steel pointy thing. And it's about 2 feet long at least. And I can stab down, and you start to push and then it gives. And a long screwdriver is a really good tool to use. Okay, so then you say, wait, I think I found that, and you kind of probe around to see which direction it's running, and you say, okay, it's going from left to right, good to know. And you decide you need to put your trap here. So what you do is you cut a chunk of grass out and the sod and just lift it out, and when you're done, you can put it back. So that's kind of the idea. You save it for replacement. And you can see this lawn. It's not really a lawn. It's more of a yard. It's more of a backfield. Okay. And then you can use your chunk of sod. You need to put it somewhere. So once you've set your trap, you put it on top of your bucket, because this is the universal sign of a mole trap set. If you go around town, you'll see that all over. Okay. So you've cut out your hole, and you need to make it big enough for the trap to fit in once it's open. Okay, so it needs to be a rectangle that's significant. And then you make it clean enough for the trap to go down. And a lot of people, they put they just kind of scrape up some of the soil to kind of make a little hump, so that as the mole is going through, it has to work a little bit, and that triggers the trap. Okay. Now this is the mole trap with the two hooks, and you put them together on the spring, and then you use the ends to go this way. It's like scissors. You're closing the handle so that the blades will open. It's just exactly like scissors. Okay. And I love this picture because the person is doing this with their hands and just gently pushing them together, right? This is in no way possible with a good mole trap. I have to lay it down on the ground and step on those two things to get them together, and then flick the little stick in its place. I can't push them with my hands. It's a very strong spring. Okay, but then you have a safety latch. Once you get it's like two horseshoes that are crisscrossed. Once you get the tops of the horseshoes together, you can hook them, and then it won't snap on you. Okay, but I love how they're just holding it with one hand and then casually flicking the little safety latch. Some of you have stronger hands than I do. Okay, so now you can see this one. Let's go back a few. This one, the top is open and the bottom is closed. Now the bottom is open and the top is closed. So this is that scissoring action. And the system has this lovely tongue with a little edge on it. And I like to use a file to smooth out the stick and to smooth out the backside of that so it's easier for it to release. There you go. You stick the round stick under the trigger, and when this gets bumped, the stick flies up and the scissory parts close. And I imagine that the people who are still here are not grossed out by this. Okay, so here's this is what a real trap looks like. They've opened it, they put the stick down, they have it hooked on the little trigger, and you can see the little safety latch, protecting it. So if you put it in the ground, you want to make sure, just a tip, take the safety latch off, because it really is a safety latch and it really will stop it from snapping. Okay, but this is what mine look like in real life. This is me stomping on, I have a board that was like all kind of covered in stuff, and it was raining, and I've stomped on those two things and managed to lean down and get this trigger set, and then I took my foot off, and if it doesn't snap and jump away, then I know I've done it right. And then you lift it by these tongs, so your hands are as far as possible away from these two areas. Okay, so not as pretty as in the picture. Oh, there's me. Okay, I'm trying to do it with my hand, which you can do, right? But I have another thing to push against. I don't know. It's just the way I have to do it. Okay, here is my nice hole, and it's kind of rectangular because it is set up that way. There's the two tunnel openings. If you somehow dig down and you feel, and this is not unusual, you feel a tunnel going one way and a tunnel going the other way and yet another tunnel going another way, choose a different place. It's just, you don't know which way they're going to come. Here's the two tongs with the safety latch on, picking it up and putting it down into the trap hole. This is how you move it, and don't forget to take, I have done this, forgotten to take the safety latch off. Okay, so there it is. Oh, look, still has it. Okay, so at this point, and you're taking the safety latch off, it is not uncommon to have bumped this delicate trigger. And so try not to have a complete meltdown if you have to pull it out and set it again, because this is common. Okay, it's easy to trigger it. It should be it's like carefully put it in. Okay, here we have the picture of the beautifully set and sort of fakey looking trap. It had a little bit of a mound going on. It's not a very good picture, actually. But the mole is going to come along and have to work a little bit, and it's going to hit the trigger. And if you make the hole too big, you need to kind of sprinkle some soil in so that it doesn't have a bunch of light suddenly shutting down. They're not blind. People think they are, but they're not. Okay, and once it's safely in the hole, release the safety latch and delicately remove the tongs. This is the point I always trigger it. So I'm moving it along and I just bump something and I have to start over. But persistence is a good skill. Some people pour a lot of loose soil down and really cover that trap up. I just do some and don't go overboard on that, because you could easily trigger the trap. And then you have your famous picture where you put a bucket or something over it and you put the chunk of dirt on it, or a rock if you've lost your chunk of dirt, and make sure that people don't mess with it. That's kind of a nice sign for them. The universal sign of a mole trap. Ah, well, wait a minute. This one does not have the stick going down the side, and the top is open, like the scissors are open. The top of the scissors are open, which means that the other side is shut. Okay, it may mean you've caught a mole. And this one indeed had, and this is me taking a trophy shot in my muddy outfit that I do this in the rain. And can you eliminate moles from your property? Sorry, no. Why? Because your lawn is perfect. It's the ideal habitat. It's got all the things a mole needs. And so some mole is going to be born nearby, and they're going to gradually spread back into your area. So that's just life. Okay, and then if you somehow wanted to take a picture of this screen, this is a lot of the sources I used. And grabbing your camera, you're taking a picture. And now, are there any questions? Do we have any questions, Miss Heidi? Assuming Heidi's here. Heidi says, yes, I'm here.
Oh yeah,
So,
I'm here.
so there's a picture in, let's go up in the top here. There's a picture of a cat, I assume it's a cat, waiting at a molehill or a hole to catch the mole. That's kind of nice. Do the traps work for voles? I do not believe
No,
so. They're too
no, they
small.
don't. Well,
don't-
voles, different action. Different
Yeah.
action. Voles aren't going to come out. They're not going to be able to grow out. Voles
No.
will think of voles kind of like a field mouse and that type
Yeah.
of thing. They're going to run on top and everything.
Yeah.
So no.
I can't imagine. See, the tunnel is about maybe 2 inches deep, more like 1, and it's right on the surface.
Yeah.
So, and they like to go under things like bark dust and tarps, but they'll go right through your lawn too. So your best option there is to get a nice load of some sort of nice topsoil and just kind of spread it, through the area, and so that the grass, and then get the grass to show so it'll grow again, and fill in the tunnels as necessary, and put a wire barrier around the things you care about underneath. So friends of mine, they do this with tulip bulbs. They put them down in a wire cage to give the bulbs a chance to put out their flower without getting chewed on by things like voles. Other questions? So Heidi, if you copy and paste the form thing in the bottom, people who have joined since that was put on, so they won't see it. There is a lovely survey. Oh wait. Oh, I'm sorry. I have more to tell you. I have.
Shelley asked the question, can you trap voles while they're using the molehill with the trap?
I think that
Maybe,
okay.
but
Here's the problem. The trap is this wide. It's this wide. The vole is this wide. It's like once it hits that trigger, it's like going to be snapped behind and in front, and it likely won't get caught in either set of jaws.
yeah.
And that's not true. I probably have seen a vole at some point, and they kind of skitter and I don't know. I don't know how you would measure a mole. However, would you like to say hello to my little friend? Okay, so those people who are grossed out by dead animals, this is your cue that you might want to stop watching. My sister was a science teacher in middle school, junior high, and she had a biology class where she caught enough moles and froze them to share so every kid could have their own mole. This is your public education dollars at work, no cost to anybody except her effort. Okay, but I would like to share a frozen mole with you if that's okay. So if you are wanting to run away now, does anybody want to see the frozen mole? Maybe I don't have the right audience for this exact activity.
I
Sure.
do. I haven't
Okay.
seen what they really look
Okay.
like. I've just seen them helping me aerate my lawn. I love that.
Yeah. Okay, so you know those people who say, put this X-Lax down in there and put this, gum or whatever it is, and they're going to eat it. Let me show you how small a mole mouth is. Okay, that's it. I'm prying it open. I mean, it would be, it's partially frozen, right? I don't see if you can see those little teeth. Do you have to do everything backwards? It is really small. So those people who say you need to put things down for them to eat that they're going to consume and get into their bodies and they're going to die from whatever it is, I don't think so. The other thing that's interesting about these moles is that their arms are stuck. There's no twisting this arm. They only go forward and back. The joints keep their claws in this position. They can't do this. They can't clap. They're stuck just like that. And they have a joint in there that is set to make them only, let's do this. He's kind of frozen. Just kind of do this. That's all. That's all they can do, which I thought was interesting. Little back feet. The back feet are kind of going a different direction. They go, like little motors, and they have cute tails. Okay, anybody thinking this is okay? You wanted to see a mole up close? There it is. I don't think he's 8 inches long though. I feel like I'm not winning the mole prize here. If you count the tail, maybe. Okay, well anyway, so that's that. Thank my sister.
Is that what the most common mole looks like, Sarah? The one that I
Yeah,
see
that is
mostly?
the most common. I need to name him. Townsend Mole. Yeah. So we have this property down at the beach, and the moles they're different. They're that other kind, the coastal mole, which is good because that property actually, just a second, I have to get he had little dirt on him. It's in Cannon Beach. I don't know if you know Cannon Beach, but Cannon Beach is like perfect land. Everybody's lawn is perfect. Everybody's yard is perfect. And moles are not accepted. Really not. So yeah, this property is actually, it's in our family, but any place that rents has to be put with a company, and the company has landscape standards. So if you want to rent your place in Cannon Beach, you can't just rent your place. There's laws. You have to have a license and you have to be through a rental agency, and it's complicated. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, and the worst part is this lawn is the #1 place in the whole town where the giant herd of elk like to hang out. If you've seen pictures of Cannon Beach, they have their own herd of elk. And they just walk through the town. I'm not even kidding. And and my neighbors, they saw my parents come there several months ago, and they came over and they said, "Did you know something? Those elk are climbing up on your porch and sleeping at night." We're like, "Oh, that explains the broken boards." Anyway, that's another whole issue. Okay,